Hello and welcome back to the Be Unbound podcast. This is Abraham Chen back with a new episode, and I am very excited for today. We have a very special guest and someone who is going to be on with me here on the podcast a lot for hopefully the next several weeks. Welcome on David Rethemeyer. How's it going, man?
Going good. How you doing, Abe?
It's nice and toasty and warm here in New York. How's the weather over there?
Yeah, it's also gotten very, very warm, very humid down here as well. It went from like being in the mid 40s to now it's in the 80s, and yeah, that's the Midwest.
Yeah. Oh, did you say the 40s?
It was down in
Dang.
the 40s like a week or two ago, and then we had like
Okay.
1 week of like spring-ish weather, and then all of a sudden it was in the mid 80s and it's humid. So what are you
Goodness.
gonna do?
That one, that one day of Midwest spring. Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, speaking of where you are, tell us about yourself, David. So, where are you now? You graduated Unbound, and so
Okay.
you have a really cool story. Let us hear about that.
Oh, yeah. So, as you've inferred from the Midwest, I am from the mid-Missouri area, so kind of like right, just a little bit west. That's the direction. Yep. West of St. Louis. And so, I was homeschooled through pretty much my entire, education. Shout out to my mother, who is a very good educator. I was fortunate that she was a teacher before she actually decided to homeschool me. And so homeschooled all the way through high school. And because of her amazing teaching ability, I was able to make it all the way through high school and graduate high school at 16 years old. And so at that point, we had heard about it a little bit. And there was actually somebody at church who had gone through College Plus at the time, because this was back in 2015. And so I enrolled in what was college prep at the time, did a little bit of dual enrollment, and then dove in. And so, yeah, I wasn't necessarily one of the most blazingly fast students to go through the program. It took me about 3.5, 4 years, but I was involved in the community to varying extents over the course of it. I was really excited, very new right at the beginning, and jumped on a lot of Empower calls, which was a lot of fun. But then, yeah, probably like middle of my like student career, like the middle couple of years wasn't as involved because it was just a lot of just school. But towards the end, I started to really try to look at where I could be involved in the community and how I could actually make a difference, because I remembered how much I enjoyed being a part of a community at the beginning. And so 2019, I hopped on and I got the opportunity to head up ECAT, now ECM, and head up Empower calls that year, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed being able to participate in helping to make something that was a new experience for me, a great new experience for some other students, hopefully some of whom are still around now. So, yeah, and then past that, feel free to interrupt me at any point, because I'm just kind of going through everything that I remember. But
It's been a while for you.
It's been a while. It's 6 years. Six years. Oh gosh, I just realized 6 years. That'll just hit me right then. Like, oh gosh, okay. So anyway, so I graduated from Unbound. I got my bachelor's from Thomas Edison in business administration beginning of 2019. And at that point, because I was fortunate enough that I was able to get through at such a low cost, that we had enough and I had an opportunity to go straight into grad school, which was very exciting. And so the fun part about that was that I finished up my undergrad in like late April, or so. And then I had 4 weeks in between the time that I finished my classwork for my undergrad and the time that I had to submit my scores for the GRE, which is the qualification exam for graduate programs. It's kind of like the SAT, but for graduate level. I had 4 weeks to prep and take that. And the thing is that doesn't include the time that it takes for the scores to get submitted to my institution. So in reality, I took like 2.5 weeks to cram and study and take that test. Managed to do all right on it, and then I got into grad school, and I 2 weeks after that started into summer classes.
Yeah, man, crazy story. You're clearly the smarter one in the room out of the two of us right now.
maybe I'm better at school. Okay, maybe, but there are many people in this community and my local community who will tell you that I make very not smart decisions on a regular basis, or at least decisions that are probably questionable. We'll put it that way.
Well, but I love how, that's just kind of part of the Unbound spirit. And I mean, hey, let's just face it, you are one of those really cool ones who got to finish school early. I love how you were like, it took me like 3 or 4 years. You know, I'm one of the slow ones. And it's really cool to see like the crazy range of us Unbounders, where we have those people who, yes, they do it in like a year and a half, 2 years. And then there's people like, I'm definitely part of the other crowd where we just worked and took our sweet time.
Hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is the cool part, is that being Unbound isn't limited to just doing things at a super, super fast pace necessarily. It just means taking the time that you need to be like Unbound from the limitations and expectations that we might have on us culturally or socially, or even sometimes free from the expectations we put on ourselves too.
100%. And I love how just kind of, with your story, it is all about the learning experience, how to learn effectively. And I would love to hear more about what you do now. Because one, yes, you're working with us in Unbound, doing some really cool stuff, but also you have your own business. So cool stuff as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I'll do a little bit of backtracking to tell you a little bit about how that actually happened. So I went to Missouri S&T was my grad school, went to that in person, finished, and they have a great placement program for jobs. I was talking to several big consulting companies and was planning, once I graduated, to probably go off and work for them for a few years, work for one of the larger consulting companies in the country. However, I graduated in spring of 2020, and so I was interviewing with companies, and then 2020'd. And so then all of those job opportunities
right there.
all those job opportunities went out the window. So and at that point I was just left with, okay, well, I can't find a job, so I guess I should make a job.
There you go.
I feel like that's a fairly Unbound thing to do. So there's something that I've been doing on the side for a while, was that probably honestly since I started with Unbound, was that there were a few businesses in my local area who said, hey, you do online college. That means that you're good at like all this online stuff, right? Can you help us with like social media and like our marketing stuff? And I said at the time, sure, you know what? It's just a thing to do on the side to bring in some money. And why not? And then I did more and more of it, and I realized I actually really enjoy this. This is a lot of fun. And so I kept doing it and building up my skill with that. And I realized, hey, marketing is actually something that I really enjoy. Both of my degrees are just more general in business administration, but I ended up enjoying marketing. And so, once I had the opportunity to, I started my own practice. It is called MSD Consulting. Those three letters stand for marketing, strategy, and digital content. Those are the three things that I focus on helping businesses to reach their full potential with. The short version of what I do is that I help small businesses primarily to basically make the most use of branding and marketing tools, primarily online marketing tools, to be able to really just reach the biggest and most viable audience that they can. Because small business owners, especially nowadays, are very, very busy, very stressed people, and they are more and more realizing how important online platforms can be, but they're very, very confusing and they evolve very quickly. So my goal is to help them to make that super easy and understandable for them, so that people can see how awesome their business is.
That's really cool, man. And so, it's so cool to see how 2020, but you were able to take that and then kind of run with, like you said, your Unbound experience and that spirit, and just, hey, go. You went for it and you started something. That was really cool. So, like how's that been with obviously coming from last year? There's a huge transition to the online world. Hey, like in my world of video, like, and just being interested in the film industry, there's so many huge changes. What are some of the changes that you've seen where people have had to move online and all that?
Yeah, for sure. I'll use one company that is one of my clients that I work with. They're a local restaurant that's owned by some people who go to my church. And one of the things was that, especially in mid 2020, they had to shut down for several months. And they were a buffet restaurant primarily, and they just couldn't let anybody come in. And so their main source of revenue, their buffet, just couldn't happen. So what I was able to help them to do was say, okay, let's see if we can figure out an infrastructure for getting delivery going. We were able to help them get delivery set up and running, get them partnered with some delivery apps as well. And then help them to put out a whole lot more promotions online to just make sure that they're communicating to people, hey, we're still here. You can still get the same great stuff that you used to on our buffet. You just have to either get it through our delivery, or you can just stop by and pick it up. And so it was a lot of changes like that. And that's just one example of that. And, it was really rough on industries like restaurants, or on the flip side of that, though, there were actually some industries that were really booming. Like one of my friends actually has a landscaping business, and that was absolutely huge last year because people were spending a whole lot of time at their houses. And so, I'm sitting around my house, might as well make my house look better. Hey, let's get some landscaping in. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. It's been really interesting to see that, and to be working with several different companies in different industries to see how different things have had to change. But I think that the thing that has been common throughout all of those different industries is that we need to be communicating with people, and online platforms are one of the best ways to do that through channels like social media. And just websites and other pages, and that's become very, very important. So it's a big change, that's, especially if in like a relatively smaller town, is really, really hard for small business owners to grasp for themselves. So I've really been grateful for the opportunity to come in and try to help make that easier for them.
Yeah, and I can totally see that, where for me, even just living in a not so small town, being in the city, it was crazy to see, just the differences and how people adapt it, how just there the huge boom in just everything moving online and people having to do deliveries and this and that. So that was really interesting. Yeah, I will say though, one thing that didn't change a whole lot was the Unbound community, for better for worse.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, that was the biggest joke, as you guys listening all know. Us being online students, you're like, huh? You know, it's one of those like when a homeschool kid gets a snow day, nothing happens.
Nothing really changes. Yep, exactly. Yep.
So were you in school? Oh, actually, wait. So you were done with school.
I was still technically. So
really,
I was just taking part in the career placement process. So a lot of schools like that will have a thing where, if you're graduating or if you're getting ready to graduate, you can already talk to employers who have networked with the university and start getting that process going. So I was actually, it was a very fun process. I was in person at the career fair, so I was talking with in person some of the executives from these companies, and then COVID hit, and so school went entirely online. So I was still finishing up my last few courses of online school,
there you go.
Which was originally not online school. I was going in person.
Sure.
And so I moved back home, and I was having to deal with I think I was much more ready for the transition to online than pretty much anybody else, the teachers included. So, but yeah, and then the interview processes went online and eventually died out. But yeah, so that it was very interesting to see the hiring field and the school field all go from in person to wait, what's happening to, okay, everything's online now, and we're going to try to make it seem like we know what we're doing, but we really don't. Nobody had a clue.
Right? Yeah, tell me about that, though. So, for me, I was doing just bachelor's throughout online with Unbound, obviously. But since you were at grad school and in person transitioning back to online, was there a difference with those online classes compared to what you did through Unbound?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So there was some online infrastructure already, thankfully, at my university. There was like most of my classes were split half and half. So there was a group of students who were in the classroom, and then there were some who were like over a Zoom call, and there were microphones like at all of the desks so people could hear discussion and stuff like that. But having it split was a little bit weird, but basically it went so that everybody was suddenly using the distance learning infrastructure, which was an IT challenge for one thing, because it went from, over the university, probably a few hundred, to suddenly being over 10,000 students having to use the online infrastructure. And it was a big challenge for teachers because a lot of them were basing it on having primarily like in-person opportunities. So like one of my classes, one of the projects was you had to go to a local business and like talk with them and like spend some time looking at some of their business infrastructure. That wasn't able to happen anymore. So a lot of professors were having to completely rework their material, and some were able to adapt a lot better than others. And it was really interesting to see, how much pressure that professors were, no matter whether they did well or poorly. I just felt for them because they were not prepared at all. And it was really cool. I made sure at the end of the semester to the professors who did a good job of that to tell them, hey, I'm used to online education, but you weren't, and you did a really good job adapting. So shout out to you, and just shout out to all of the teachers who had to deal with stuff like that last year, because, man, it was a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. I know so many friends who are teachers, and even my siblings going to school and just seeing everything and everyone trying to adapt, especially the teachers. It's huge. But it was really cool to hear about. I mean, there's the jest and there's the, laughing of how, yeah, Unbounders, we kind of are used to things. But it's really fascinating, like you pointed out, the differences between what we do for Unbound, which is intentionally online, compared to classes that you were taking that were supposed to be in person, but were forced online. And I think even just with Unbound, there's a different, I don't know if you want to say attitude towards learning or whatnot, where we have in person, I mean, even before the pandemic, like you had to, like, for example, for the leadership courses, these are the signature leadership courses that we take with Dr. Jeff Myers from Summit Ministries. Yeah, like we have to go out and like go in community and mentor people and find a mentor and all these things. But it was very much also different compared to, like you said, like an in-person class where you had to do a lot of like in-person stuff. So yeah, like the whole learning attitude changing is interesting.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that in a lot of my classmates who I was working with, or maybe it was probably there was an extent of it that was just the whole year getting to them, but especially in the transition online, it was there was a lot of negativity. It felt like of just I hate that we have to do it this way. Why can't I hate that I can't be with my friends studying and that I have to deal with all this new stuff, even though most of them were very smart people who were able to figure out all of the systems and able to adapt fairly well. It was still just man, this is just such a hard adjustment that I really wish that I wasn't having to make. And so at the same time, it was kind of a cool opportunity for me as an Unbound student to be able to come alongside, in a way, a lot of my classmates and say, hey, I get that this is not at all what you signed up for. This isn't what you're looking for, but this is something that can really work if you're able to take the right approach and the right attitude. And that was a really neat opportunity.
Yeah, that was really cool. So, what were some of the specific things that you picked up with Unbound that you were able to take to, learning online with grad school? What are some of the practical skills, if you will?
Yeah. I would have to say, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but just an understanding of how to learn effectively, an attitude of learning is super important. I think it's super important in pretty much all of life, but especially in school, there were, I noticed there was quite a few people who were very burnt out and were just saying, I'm just doing this to get it done. And that's a super easy one to get into. And hey, even in Unbound, that happens.
Hey,
that happened to me several times, I'll tell you what. But
we'll get into that.
It's just when you have that attitude, it just makes it harder for you to learn and to take in anything and to do well. The thing that helped me the most was that even in classes where I had fairly low expectations, what helped was going into it and saying, okay, maybe this isn't what I'm wanting to learn. Maybe this isn't what I'm wanting to do. What can I learn that I'm wanting to learn out of this? What can I find that's interesting? What can I find that is actually applicable? Maybe I'm taking like advanced 6,000 level managerial accounting, but what can I take from this that is something that actually interests me, is something that I want to learn, that I think that I can use down the road? And sometimes teachers make that super easy. Sometimes it's not quite as easy, but in that way, almost making it an additional challenge on top of the course of, not only should I try to get through the coursework, but let's see what else is there that I can pull out, was something that really helped me.
Yeah, totally. And so whether we are online students, or if you're listening to this and considering doing online or considering doing Unbound through Ascend, like you said, David, we've all been there. We've all experienced that kind of burnt out. I'm just doing this, I'm done. And yeah, especially last year, or just for those of us who finished recently, like senioritis is such a thing.
Yep.
And so for you, what was something while being Unbound that that helped you grow and develop this learning kind of outlook that you had of just like wanting to see what you could get out of things?
Hmm. Yeah, I think there was part of it that was, we talk about this all the time in Unbound, is that it was part of it was the community, was being able to
Mm-hmm.
see other people do really cool things with what they were learning and have really cool
Yeah.
experience based off of that, and just try
Mm-hmm.
to get inspiration from that and see, maybe this isn't something that interests me, but hey, why does this subject that is super boring to me, why does that interest you? How does that factor into what you do, what you think that
Mm-hmm.
you're called to do, what your purpose is? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's probably not going to change your mind. If I talk to my friend who's a biology major, that's not going to make me immediately passionate about microbiology, but at least I can
Yep.
potentially get a better understanding of, hey, this is why some of this is really important, how some of this factors into, what I do. And,
Mm-hmm.
this is why it can be really cool. So the community, for one thing, is a massive resource for that, to be excited about learning. And I think the other thing was just the flexibility that Unbound offered was really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I could, learn at my own pace with the resources that I found that worked the best for me. And that's something
Yeah.
that has helped me into grad school, into career, is that if
Mm.
you can
Yeah.
not only look at what I have to learn is coming out of, the course textbook, the course structure, look for ways to learn
Yep.
from things other than that, because sometimes those things will help you a lot and be able to make you much more effective at looking at the resources that you have on hand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and just being able to go out there and find what you're looking for. That's something that is huge, not just in school, but just in, you know, in the workforce. There's a reason that people refer to Google Foo as being a very valuable skill in the workplace now, is that if you're able
Yeah.
to research and find the information that you need to get done what you need to do done,
Yep.
that's an absolutely massive resource that will help you get very far.
Yeah. To jump off what you said, I think another way to say it would be basically work smarter, not harder. In
Yep.
a way. Yeah, and just the whole, I think passion is contagious. I think if you
Mm.
hang out with
Mm-hmm.
people who are passionate about what they do, that really is unique and
Yeah.
special, that inspires you to do what you're passionate about. And speaking of passion, I think, again, it's a really deep topic that warrants its own podcast episode.
Hey,
I'm
put
sure
it
we'll get to
down. We
that
might do it in the
someday.
future.
Exactly. But capturing passion, man, is like part of it
Mm.
is finding the time and the energy and the resources to do what God has called you to do
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do. And I do think that Unbound, with its structure, is all about letting you do what you want to do. Again, project-based
Yeah.
learning, where you're doing projects that you are passionate about, instead of like
Mm-hmm.
learning how to write APA formatted
Mm-hmm.
papers just because you
Mm-hmm.
have to, right? You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So
Yeah, we're working on projects. Even if it's a project that you're never gonna do again in your life, is that the
yeah.
skills that you learn while going through those projects, those will carry over. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Awesome, man. It's so good to have you on. I'm very excited to be with you on the podcast.
Yeah.
And guys, if you're listening, we mentioned the Ascend program a lot. Ascend is a project-based education program where we learn by doing projects of our choice, of students' choices, where we
Mm-hmm.
get to explore what we're passionate about while living life, getting our degrees, earning credit. So if you're interested, please check the show notes down below. We have the website and all the information there. And hey, if you want to even reach out to us, if you're a student for just more thoughts or information, we would love to hear from you guys. And yeah, David, any last words real quick?
I guess the one thing is that when you're talking about it, if you are listening and if you're interested in what one of those projects looks like, Abe, actually, you guys just released a video highlighting a story about one of the Ascend students who has just done a project. You can check out Tim's story. I don't know. You think we can add the link to that down below? Because I really, really liked that video. That was awesome.
That was such a fun project. Yes, we will link Tim's Ascend project story in the notes below as well. Guys, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next week.